The nature of fascism. The following educational is taken from A.B. McGill's The Peril of Fascism, which was originally written in 1938. Its warning is as applicable today as it was then. The word fascism was almost unknown in the American political vocabulary until a few years ago. Now it is a byword on the tongue of every campaign orator. The Hearst press and the diatribes of the Liberty Leaguers frequently denounce Roosevelt as an incipient fascist. The New Dealers and progressives, replying in kind, accuse Hearst and the Liberty Leaguers of attempting to saddle fascism on the United States. The emergence of the word fascism as the most commonly used epithet in the American political vocabulary is a tribute to the healthy hatred which an overwhelming majority of the American people has developed for fascist dictatorship. The spectacle of the Nazis coordinating Germany and Austria with steel rod and whip, of Italy bringing fascist, quote, civilization to Ethiopia with poison gas, of Franco's planes bombing the women and children of Barcelona and Madrid, of Japanese legions sacking Nanking and Shanghai, has made the word fascism anathema to most Americans. Indeed, so hateful has the word become that American fascists generally avoid its use. They are cunning enough to masquerade under less objectionable names. Note, in 2025, one can look at the election where the word fascist was being used by both sides. When the word is overused, it loses its meaning. Like the boy that cried wolf, people become unafraid of the word. Therein lies a serious danger for Americans who hate fascism because they know what it means in Europe and who would reject it under its own name. Sometimes follow fascist and semi-fascist organizations when these hide their real purposes and programs under the cloak of, quote, 100% Americanism. Most Americans, while maintaining a healthy abhorrence of fascism, have only the vaguest conception of its nature and origin. They identify fascism with brown or black shirts, with clicking heels and marionette salutes. They would not recognize it in a full-dress suit or a priest's cassock, or the homespun of a backwoods Hitler. Fascism takes on many disguises. It cannot afford to reveal itself to proclaim its aims. Hitler would never have achieved power if he had announced to the German masses that his program was the program of big business, of the Tysons and the Krupps. That Nazi rule meant lower wages, ersatz clothing, concentration camps, and cannon instead of butter. It was necessary for Hitler to call his party, quote, National Socialist, to promise to abolish, quote, unearned income, confiscate war profits, and nationalize the trusts. The, quote, socialist coloration of Nazi demagoguery was necessary because a large majority of the German working class and a good part of the lower middle class believed in socialism. In the United States, where there is, as yet, no widespread socialist sentiment, fascism takes on different and specifically American disguises. In order to win popular support, it must appeal to the ideals and slogans in which most Americans still believe, to liberty and freedom. It must even pronounce itself anti-fascist. Here then is a main source of danger to the successful struggle against fascism in the United States, that large groups of people who have a vague abhorrence of fascism are insufficiently familiar with its nature to recognize it in its various disguises and to combat it intelligently. But another and even greater danger arises from the belief that the United States is immune to fascism. Most persons who hold this view regard fascism as a specifically European virus that can never, or hardly ever, thrive in, quote, free America, which has known the blessings of democratic government. This view with various modifications, is shared by persons in different political camps. William MacDonald, writing in the New York Times, cannot imagine the United States, quote, tolerating a fascist system or a fascist dictator. Walter Lippmann, writing in the New York Herald Tribune, cannot conceive of a dictator seizing power in this country, as Mussolini did when he, quote, marched on Rome, because the United States is divided into 48 states, and, quote, there is no Rome against which a dictator can march. The new leader, right-wing socialist Organ, publishes an article deploring, quote, hysterical prophecies about the coming of fascism. And Walter Duranty, New York Times correspondent, flatly proclaims that, quote, it can't happen here. Most of these and similar statements are based on the sage observation that the United States is not Europe and Washington is not Rome. This geography is incontrovertible, but not necessarily relevant. Before Hitler's victory in Germany, there were optimists who, with the same logic, assured the German people that Germany was not Italy. Later, to their horror, they discovered that this undeniable fact did not prevent the Nazis from coming to power and burning their writings in the public squares. Similarly, in France, naive observers argued that democratic France was not militaristic Prussia. Despite these differences in national tradition, France saw the growth of a powerful fascist movement, whose march to power was halted only by the united opposition of the progressive and peace-loving people of the country. In the United States, democratic traditions have not prevented fascist practices in company towns, lynch law in the South, or the growing tendency to abrogate the constitutional rights of free speech, press, and assembly, when these are exercised by groups whose views are distasteful to employers or bureaucratic police officials. For instance, right-to-work laws are now widespread in the South and may be coming nationally. Fascism, it appears, transcends geography. National peculiarities, traditions, and habits of mind are not insuperable barriers to it. Fascism can either smash through these barriers or, what is most likely in the United States, steal its way around them. For fascism comes on cat's feet. To prevent its victory in this country, the American people must exercise the greatest vigilance and ignore optimistic assurances that, quote, it can't happen here. They must be sufficiently familiar with the fascist beast to recognize its odor, no matter how silent its tread. Knowledge and vigilance are prerequisite to a successful struggle to keep fascism from the United States. We must know the nature and the roots of fascism if we wish to prevent the United States from being transformed, like Germany and Italy, into a gigantic concentration camp.